6:36.
I will call the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee to order. We're all having too much fun, aren't we? The first item on our agenda is to approve, is to approve minutes, and those would be minutes from our March 6th meeting.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jordan.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Are there any additions or corrections? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Beatty, our county trustee, will give us the investment report.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Good evening. Mr. Schaefer, you don't have to laugh before I even get started. Our LGIP rate was down to 0.09, but I do want to point out that our contract that we brought to you last year with Bank of America, they're actually paying us more than LGIP on our excess funds there. It's 12 basis points, not great in the days, but we have left a larger balance there because that is better. So it does give us at least a little different option that we're trying to take advantage of. But we didn't have any bids over this last month.
Motion to approve the report, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandlin.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Peck. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Beatty, do you have something else to report?
Well, it's going to just, as we kind of ended the February 28th, got through our first month, tax collections are up. They were for the 12 tax year. And so in saying that they're up for 12, we turned less over to Chancery significantly. And from what we turned over 2 years ago, we've turned over $1 million less, which is great. We're collecting it up front, but it will show in your budget that less coming from Chancery Court just because there's, not that they're not doing a good job continuing to collect. They just got less to collect over there, and we are ahead this year as a percentage of the tax roll in collections. So things are going well there.
So you're saying except for the LGIP, where the economy is ahead of the game now?
It is, yes.
Okay, and if you will stay with us.
Ms. Becker.
Are you Ms. Becker? Welcome. Join us, please. This is Ms. Becker, and we will look at approval of an agreement for Farmers Market for credit card and EBT processing.
Yes. So, in last fall, you all approved a contract with FIS Payment Services, which is the contract. They were contracted with the Department of Human Services to manage the state EBT program for farmers markets. And we went with them because the point and pay system the county currently has a contract with for card payments does not accept EBT. So we looked for a separate vendor. DHS had this one, and they offer some perks with that. However, that was approved, brought to the commission and approved. The contract was, the contract they sent us to have Mayor Burgess sign was outdated. And then they stalled for many, many months getting us a new contract to get to you. And in that time, the state DHS has decided that they're too cumbersome to deal with. And so they changed contractors last week. And we have a market that opens May 9th. So we have a new contractor that DHS has decided to do business with. And there are some things we've sent the contract to the county attorney, and they're reviewing that right now, pending their approval of the contract and any amendments. It's a pretty good deal because lots of the fees are less than they would be with the first FIS contractor. And even better in the first year, so the first 6 months we use it, which is essentially the 2014 market season, DHS covers all of the fees, including the machine and monthly payments and everything but the transaction fees for the swipes. So we're asking for approval to send this contract forward pending the county attorney's approval.
And maybe a question: how do y'all fund those swipe
right,
charges?
So in the future, we will have some fees associated with every swipe. So there will be, a fee for just the swipe, and then a percentage of each sale. Okay. And we plan to charge. In the past, we've been working with MTSU. They've managed this grant that we started this with, and MTSU funded all of those transaction fees. They didn't charge anything back to the customer. Instead this year, we're going to charge a $1.50 transaction fee, just like a cheaper ATM for the convenience. And that should be more than the transaction fee for most every purchase unless someone bought a huge amount. But all in all, it should average out to cover.
Are they still gonna get the tokens where they go up and, there was some deal with it where you just
This is
got
all
them-
the token, this is the token.
This
program.
is the token program, yeah.
This is the token.
Because not every vendor has the card. We've got a card machine in a
Right.
central location. They
Right.
get the tokens and they go
Right.
buy their
It's
stuff.
increased
And-
sales tremendously. Last year, we did
Yeah.
$50,000
well,
just
and
in
it
the
enables
token
people
program.
who have the
Wow.
The
EBT cards to
Right.
eat healthy foods and things like
Right,
that, so.
right. It's been tremendously
Yeah, yeah.
successful.
I make a motion to approve contingent upon county attorney
County
approval.
Second from Commissioner Jernigan. Any further questions or discussion?
The fees, where do they go to? Where do they wind up?
Well, so a customer swipes their card, the
Mhm.
money goes from their bank account to, it will go to a Rutherford County
Okay,
account.
okay, is that
But
general fund or trust?
Those fees actually are charged by the card processor that charges those fees. So, I mean, the county never actually gets that. They take that off the top, and they're gonna charge the $1.50 so that the county doesn't come out of county funds to pay for
So it'd be
those.
basically like at the county clerk's office?
Right, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Okay.
If anything, we'd have some slight accumulation of money just to help support the program.
Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Hold on just a moment. I've got a question too. What's happening Saturday since I've got you
What's
here?
happening Saturday? We have Adventures in Agriculture at the Lane Agri Park from 10 to 2. A free event for all ages with lots of live animals and all aspects of agriculture represented, and trolley rides, and generally showing off our facility at the Lane Agri Park.
There's also
And it's a Farm Bureau sponsored event, not just for us, but all.
you're doing a plant swap too, aren't you?
The plant swap is coming up on April 26th.
The 26th, okay.
I can give a full extension report if you'd like.
Actually, I would like it. Maybe the rest of them wouldn't, but thank you, James.
The Adventures in Agriculture is a huge deal. I
It
mean, there's
really
a
is. We
ton
get-
of kids out there.
We get 1,200 to 1,000 people, so I mean, it just varies on the weather each year, so it's a big, great event for all ages.
Too, I wanted to mention the program where these people can go in and get the tokens at the farm sales there is really popular. And not only that, I mean, there's fresh produce there and it's good. You know, there's organic, there's grass-fed beef. I mean, you name whatever you'd like, you'll pretty well find it there. And this is a producer's market, and you don't see that as much. You know, these are actually the guys that produce these goods, and they're there for us and doing a service. And anyway, I want to say thank you, and thank your department for
Thank
doing
you.
a good job.
It's enjoyable, rewarding work.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, if you will locate your fund condition report, our finance director, Mrs. Nolan, will begin with the development tax.
In March, we received $227,250 for development tax. That brings our year-to-date total to $2,981,250.
And if you're ready, we'll move to cash balances.
The cash at the end of March totaled $197,959,000, with $189,536,000 being operating funds, $8,424,000 being borrowed funds.
Any discussion on the cash balances? Let's move to revenues.
As Mr. Beatty was mentioned, that they are ahead on collections. What that means for our budgets that have property tax in it, we've already collected 100% of our estimated amount for the current levy. So in the general fund, under your total local taxes, you see that we're at 96.47% complete. You've got two things happening. One, they're ahead of where we would have estimated they would be at this time, and the increase in the development tax also is throwing those numbers higher than what you see in the previous 5 years. On that particular page, the only area that I would say there's a concern, it would be the ambulance total charges at this time compared to a couple $100,000 below what we were in the prior year. On the other funds, you'll see, I think we're going to pretty much hit our revenue estimates. You can see that in total that we are ahead of where we were in each of the previous 5 years. Only area of concern of an area not meeting the estimate is in the general debt service and total local revenues. That's below where we should be, and that has to do with the interest earned. And part of that estimate, when we were estimating it last year, had estimated that we would be going to the market in the fall. The bond market, we would have those cash proceeds on hand, we would be earning some interest, so we haven't done that, so that's part of the reason why we're not going to meet that.
We're not paying interest either, though.
We're not paying it either, so that's good.
Any discussion or further questions on the fund condition report?
Motion to approve the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Fee. Seconded by Commissioner Jones. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're ready for the general fund budget amendments. And Mr. Mitchell. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, how are you?
Fine, thank you. If you will present your amendment.
I'm requesting that we move from 52,300 travel to line 52,310, 300 other contracted services, an amount of $22,000.
Motion to approve the request.
Commissioner Schaefer, thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Bond. Discussion relative to the motion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Fee?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. And Mr. Mitchell, you also have a resolution authorizing a continuous 4-year reappraisal cycle and approval of the memorandum of understanding with the Tennessee Division of Property Assessments.
Yes, ma'am. I believe Lisa has,
It's on there.
It's right over here?
It's on
Oh,
there.
okay.
There's your resume.
There we go. It's just a resolution that the state puts out approving our 4-year cycle, saying that the plan that we have in place is acceptable to them, and it meets all the statutory requirements for a reappraisal program.
So nothing is changing, it's just a renewal time?
Just renewal.
Okay. Make a motion to approve the request then.
Commissioner Schaefer, thank you.
Second the motion.
Seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Any further discussion?
Currently, what is the cycle?
It's every 4 years. We're in a 4-year reappraisal cycle.
Okay.
We just have to put down exactly what our plans are for reviewing the properties, how we plan to do it, which sections we're going to go through, how many parcels we're going to look at on a quarterly basis to turn in. And they have to look at it and give their blessing to it, so it looks like you'll cover everything in the time frame that you're supposed to.
I mean, you're changing this because of time frames, or?
Oh, no. We just have to do this every 4 years. We have to present the State Department of Property Assessment with our plan for the next 4 years. They have to sign off on it, then we have to bring it to the commission for approval for the continuing resolution. It says, okay, what we're going to do is fine.
Okay, thank you.
This is just housekeeping, this isn't
Just
any change.
housekeeping. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't throwing in a new appraisal there. That people be calling me and say, hey, what are you doing here? Thank you.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Mitchell.
very much.
From OIT, I think we have Mr. Robertson and Mr. Moore joining us. Good evening, gentlemen.
Okay, I'm going to give a little bit of an update. Brian and them lost one of their key people, and we've been trying to replace that key person, and I'll let him explain a little bit about the difficulty of that. But as it turns out, it looks like with all this increased workload and the new need for security and technology improvements and enhancements, one person probably is not enough to do this, and the person that we described in the job description requirements was not available yet. If they were available, far, far out of our ability to pay. So what we've got here is a proposal. As you know, that we have one open position in the mayor's office. And I'm willing to give over this position to OIT, and they're going to hire 2 people instead of 1. These 2 people will be not quite the same level that they initially were going to replace, but it will give them huge flexibility and backup and support, and allow them to have the needed resources they need. So that's what this is all about here. This minimum here is just to finish this year out, and they have now taken applications again the second time, and they've got a good pool of applicants from which to make these selections. Now, Brian and them can add any technical other questions you might have.
The second pool of applicants did confirm our notion that we had too much stacked in the job description. And we were even told directly I would have applied, but it was intimidating and or I wasn't qualified. And so we had 8 applicants for the original posting with all of the more complex components plugged into the job description. And 4 of those were marginally qualified. We offered it to the top contender, and he was given an offer while we were trying to hire him. So that left us with none and caused us to be faced with the proposition of reposting the position and somehow expecting different results the second time around. So instead we went to the mayor and said, we think we have too much resting upon this one position, and we feel that these responsibilities should really be divided amongst 2 individuals. In addition to our previous person in the preceding position being, we knew that we had a lot on him. I don't think perhaps we knew just how much was on him until he departed. And that's part of why we're in the shape that we're in. And meanwhile, ticking off the weeks here, we've been since February without a system administrator, network administrator, etc. And so Darren is having to pull people off the front line and out of the field who were otherwise deployed doing things that we planned to do all along. So in addition to a lapse, just because there's been a vacancy, it's also been a bit of a wake-up call to us that there is too much heaped on the position. So that's why we went to the mayor and pleaded for help.
How much difference in pay are we talking by adding the position to him and deleting yours, the two differences?
You might address that, Brian. I mean, these 2 people at the level they're going to be paid may be a little bit less than what they were going to pay for the one, so I don't know what the net effect would be for.
Well, I was just looking at
Yeah.
one because
Yeah.
And do you mean the difference between his older position and this new position?
Right.
It's right at $10,000 per year. Your previous employee was right at 39. This new employee would be 49 or 50, right in there.
Okay.
So that's
Plus the
10.
benefits on that, I guess.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And how much less is it than the position that was there?
Well,
It's 2 positions.
Yeah,
You got that?
Now.
yes.
Yeah.
It will be
Yeah.
with this approach.
Well, you put the 2 together is what we're getting
It's
at.
very, very close.
Okay.
It's very, very close. Now, I would say that we speculate, and having talked to HR, that we would have had to have been in the 70s to have gotten a person that we felt was qualified for the position once we had rewritten the job description. So I was basically going to the mayor and saying, we either need, which would have also messed up our entire internal structure, because that would have been one of the highest paid people in our department. It would have caused other cascade effects. So we said, you know what, we need 2 system administrators and get these duties divided up and still get the job done, and have some redundancy when that person leaves, walks out of the courthouse as well. That was another issue right there.
That was another huge thing. We have historically, when that one person went on vacation, I hoped that he was always within phone reach ability. You know, we'd occasionally have to call him different hours of the night during the, on vacation, when he was out sick, whatever. Just trying to, because there's some things that he had set up and done in certain ways that not everybody in the department was familiar with, because he just did it. And so that having 2 people in that position that are interchangeable will definitely help.
Well, this sounds like a good plan to me, and to the cost difference there. We're not adding the person. There is a little bit more cost, but for the duties that are there, having said that, I'll make a motion to approve this.
Commissioner P., thank you.
Sure.
Seconded by Commissioner Jernigan.
So
Any further discussion? Commissioner
when we
Shaker?
receive the budget from OIT and the mayors will reflect one less person, because it's going to be taken care of when this goes before the commission if it passes here, right?
Yes, correct.
And the OIT will have one more person added on. Okay.
What position was taken out of the mayor's office? I mean, what was...
Ms. Carolyn Holt retired, and we have not filled that position, and we decided that we can manage without that position. So we thought this was an opportunity to help with a needed situation.
Any further discussion relative to the motion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We have a general fund budget amendment from General Sessions.
Take care of this one.
I don't see Ms. Watkins.
They were needing to replace a copier, and within their budget, they were able to fund $3,000 from travel and $3,200 from evaluation and testing to have enough funds to buy a copier.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. From PAWS, Mr. Gregory. Good evening, Mr. Gregory.
Good evening.
If you will explain your budget amendment, please.
Yes, ma'am. We're asking to take money within our budget from our attendant line item and to put that over into our part-time personnel and our overtime pay to hopefully get us to the end of the fiscal year. We had money that was donated, around $500, and I just learned this week another, I think, $150 into our donation line. We're asking to pull $1,000 out. The largest part of the donation was given to buy a camera, and the other smaller donation that I learned of this week is to buy lights so that we can take better photography or better photographs of our adoptable animals for our website. And then the third part of the amendment has to do with the training conference that we hosted back in March. We had registration fees, and we also received $2,500 from the ASPCA to offset some of the cost of that training. We're asking to put $2,885 back into the drugs and medical supply line item from that. That's where we pulled the money originally to be able to fund it, and we put $500 into our office supplies to cover the printing costs that we had for the training.
Make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Jernigan, thank you.
I'll second it. None of this is new money. This is all in his budgets. Appreciate that.
Second from Commissioner P. Any further discussion or questions for Mr. Gregory?
I just wanted to ask one question on the personnel on the part-time and an overtime. Are you
You got an open position in there?
We did have open positions, yes.
Okay, so this is tidying this up, and then, so this should decrease then here in the next.
But that would be our
Hopefully so.
goal. That would be
Yeah.
our goal.
Yeah.
We took the 2 open positions, as you recall,
Mhm.
last month and reclassified those into a admin assistant and a training officer. So that opened up an officer position. Then we had an officer that resigned this week. So I've got 2 positions open again that we're trying to fill to get the officer ranks back up.
Wow.
And that will have us fully staffed at that point.
Okay. You got that underway then as far as?
Yes, sir. The position's already been posted and we're working on interviewing.
Good deal.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Fee?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Correctional Work Center.
Mr. Solandi is ill with a cold or something, but in any event, what we have here is we need to buy some mattresses and $7,000, and we're going to take that money out of other contracted services to do just that.
So I move, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandlin.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Fee?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Hello, Mr. Russell.
150 mattresses for $7,000. That's not a sleep number bed, I think.
That's 150 mattresses.
That's what I said, 150 mattresses.
Yeah.
At $40 or $50 a piece.
Yeah.
Mr. Russell, if you will begin with your budget
don't wanna stay there
amendment
long.
request.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't think I'm too comfortable.
Put 2 together.
Duct tape them together, right? Okay, we need some more funds in food supplies, food prep supplies, which is the trays that we used to feed the inmates with. So we canceled a couple purchases in our maintenance equipment line item and our other equipment line item. To total $14,000, we want to put that into the food supplies so we can continue to feed everybody. And this 14 probably won't be enough. I may have to come back and do some more here in another month or so. I've got to find some more money in our budget, so I'm working on that right now. We had insurance recovery where we had a check come back on a total vehicle, $10,257. We'd like to put that back into our motor vehicle line item.
And Mr. Russell, let me interrupt
Yes, ma'am, go
just a
ahead.
minute. If I hear no objection, we'll continue and take this as one vote. But notice the next amendment is an amendment that has drug fund and general fund because these numbers are interrelated.
Yes, ma'am. So what we wanted to do was, out of the drug fund, there was a sale and other stuff that we had. Let's see. What we're trying to do is we're trying to put $40,000 out of the drug fund into the overtime for the general fund. There's a lot of things that when we had moved the NARC positions out of the NARC fund and put them into the general fund, they've been drawing a lot of overtime dollars because they've been doing a lot of good work here lately. Had some good busts. So we felt like it was just the best thing to do is to pull some of those funds from the drug fund and put them back into the general fund to cover those expenses. So that's that request. The last item is our where we go and pick up prisoners. It's the transportation, and that fund normally has about $50,000 in it. We went with $25 on the budget this year just so we could skate by, and we cannot. So I need to move $12,000 in that line item, and we're going to pull it out of maintenance and repair vehicles. And that's it for that part.
Motion to approve, Madam Chairman.
Commissioner
Second.
Sandlin, thank you. Seconded by Commissioner P. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Fee?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yeah.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Mr. Russell and Mayor Burgess perhaps will give some information on approval of surplus and confiscated vehicle auction.
Okay, they've got an auction scheduled for
Saturday.
And previously, when we had the time appropriately available, we took this to the purchasing committee just for their blessing to surplus these vehicles. We did not have time to do that this particular time, and you can see we've only got, I think, 9 of these vehicles, so we're just asking the budget committee to go ahead and bless the sale of these surplus vehicles, which are clearly surplus, and so that's what we're here to ask you for. We did not have a purchasing committee scheduled and could not have scheduled one time just to officially do this little bit of business, so we thought it was not significant enough to do that or wait on this, and they've already scheduled their sale.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Jordan, thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Saley. I guess we've got to call the roll. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Do you need
Mr.
the
Russell,
VA
while you're
notice?
here,
Okay.
yes, gentlemen, if you don't mind, if you will go back to your main menu and go down to item number 7, while Mr. Russell is here, we'll take care of the special purpose fund budget amendments, and he has 2 of those. And this is something he does quite regularly. This is the asset forfeiture dollars that we've talked about regularly. Mr. Russell?
Madam Chairman, on the last one, could I ask Mr. Russell what a poor green mercury is?
Poor
Could
green
you
merc-
describe it?
Oh, it's, yeah.
They don't make
You
them
wouldn't-
anymore,
You wouldn't
that's
want to put it in
what-
your driveway, I'll say that. It's got many miles on it, so it needs to go. And we couldn't get anybody to drive it anymore, they'd all rather walk, I guess, is the deal, so it's that bad. For the month of March, we had asset forfeiture of $2,648.80. We'd like to put that into our 790 general equipment line item. And the same for April, we had $7,174.87, and we'd like to put that into the same line item of general equipment, in the DEA fund.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner P., thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Thank you for your time.
Gentlemen, if we can find our way back to the general fund budget amendments, we have a request from juvenile detention. Hello?
Good evening.
Good evening to you.
All right, we have a request to move from within our existing budget $5,200 from 110 lieutenant line item and 160 guards into a 115 sergeant. I have had a long-term employee move from full-time to part-time, and my replacement employee has quite a bit more county experience than the first, and so this is just to take care of the difference in the salaries.
Make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Jernigan, thank you.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Discussion or questions for Mrs. Duke?
Don't we normally go through this during the budgetary process, though, instead of coming, I mean, we have done some adjustments, but I think we did some just a couple months ago with your department.
This is not changing the position, the type of position. It's just that the person coming into it has more experience than the one who left.
Usually it's the other way around.
And usually
So
it's
you're
the other
just
way around.
shuffling those
So we're
around to
moving the
match
money
up?
Because she was, paid a lot in the position she
Mhm.
was too.
Mhm.
So we're just kind of moving the money to where she is. He is. They are.
Those 2 of them.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Farley? Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Your request?
Well, as y'all know, it's been a cold winter, and propane and electricity has eaten me up. We want to move $14,500 in our existing budget into utilities, from $4,000 out of evaluation and testing, $2,000 out of maintenance and repair for buildings, $1,000 out of data processing supplies, $1,000 out of instructional supplies and materials, $1,500 out of office supplies, $3,000 out of other $499 other supplies and materials, and $2,000 out of communication equipment 708. This will hopefully carry us on our utilities through July.
Personally, I'm impressed you was able to do that without going into unappropriated. I mean, you
Well, I'm
dug it up from everywhere, looks like.
I'm squeaking right now. It's tight. So we just hold our breath till till the 1st of July.
Is that just one location?
No, this is
So it's
seven
combined,
stations,
seven,
yeah.
okay. All right.
See, some of my Outlander stations, they've got propane, and
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
when it gets down to 1 degree, it just,
Yeah.
of course, we just keep it just enough, and some stations just keep it from freezing.
I make a motion to approve the request.
Second
Commissioner
motion.
Schaefer, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Fee?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Thank you.
Maybe it won't snow again this year.
Okay, from the Finance Office, we have 2 requests, and we will need to take these as
Separate.
Separate, I'm
This-
sorry,
This
yes.
first one is traffic control and the traffic budget, and we're asking to move $2,500 for repair and maintenance into utilities. There's just not going to be enough to carry it through to the end of the year, the way it's set up now.
And gentlemen, look, she has listed the 4 intersections.
Mhm.
We always ask that
Okay.
question, so now we know.
And it's Las Casas.
Let me-
See it on this. It's
Las
yeah.
Cas.
Since the racetrack over there, is it not closed now?
That's the lights
The
under the
lights.
bridge and the light above the bridge.
This
At
is not
the-
the traffic
on
signal?
840.
It's not the traffic
that's
signal?
right.
Okay.
Part of it's the lights going under the bridge.
Yes.
And then there's traffic lights above
That's
it.
where most of the cost is, and we had to replace a number of those earlier.
Well, I was hoping that we could delete some of those, so. All right.
So we need to pay that bill, gentlemen.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner
Second.
Jordan, seconded by Commissioner P. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Fee?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yeah.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. And Mrs. Nolan.
I need to replace the 2 computers that were purchased in 2006 for the gentleman that do our inventory control of fixed assets. So I am asking to pull money from within the budget, $400 for maintenance agreement, $3,000 for travel, $200 for maintenance repair of equipment, and $500 from office supplies to data processing equipment.
They're only 8 years old. You can't get one more year.
Get down to 6 model cars, late model, but a computer, that's ancient.
It is ancient.
Second the motion, Madam
Commissioner
Chairman.
Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Windows
Commissioner Jernigan?
63 or
Windows.
something like that.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Fee?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Mr. Nunley.
Could we get more of that poor mercury if we threw in a computer?
Good evening, Mr. Nunley. If you will walk us through your request.
We had some positions in a couple of our departments that were,
The first one is the scholarship.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was here first.
okay, I got that. We had a $4,000 donation from Stonecrest Hospital to fund one of our paramedic scholarships. So we need to put that into our in-service account and staff development where we can use it.
And
So moved.
I think we can take this all as one motion if you all would like.
Okay, move on.
If you'd like to continue then, Mr. Nunley.
As I
Appreciate
was-
them doing that. That's nice.
As I was saying, they do that yearly.
Mhm.
As I was saying, we had some salary increases, minor salary increases in a couple of departments after the budget was passed. And we need to take care of those. We also have spent more money out of our part-time personnel payroll than we anticipated. We would like to take $104,000 from paraprofessionals payroll and put $12,000 of it in supervisor and director payroll, $80,000 in part-time personnel payroll, $12,000 into overtime pay. We would like to take $3,800 from dispatch payroll and put that into office payroll, and $9,000 from uniforms and put that into utilities.
And your last one?
That was the last one.
It's the radios.
That's your communication equipment.
Communication, to move this to $12,000 from contracts with private agencies. That was a contract that we had planned to do with the radio shop because of the poor condition of our radios, but we never did implement that. and we want to move that to communication equipment in order to put radios in each of our ambulance stations, because some of our ambulance stations don't receive two-way radios on their handhelds, and that's the way we notify them. So Joe Gurley's advice was to put basically a mobile radio there, but run it off of electricity, kind of like a Claxton horn in the fire
A
department.
base station, yeah.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Jernigan, thank you.
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner P. Any further discussion or questions for Mr. Nunley? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Nunley. I don't see Mr. Albuquerque. Highway Fund Budget Amendment.
This is similar to the two other ones, and a request to increase their natural gas line and to take it from crushed down, $10,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner P, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Industrial Economic Development Fund Budget Amendment. Mrs. Nolan?
Yes, ma'am. Going through the budget prep, going to this fund, the Industrial Development Fund. This is the one where we approved changing the terms of an agreement with the Airport Authority to extend the length of the note and to reduce the amount of interest. I'm just adjusting the budget amount to reduce interest earned by $7,945 and reducing the assigned for operations.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Schaefer, thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner P. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Gentlemen, we're ready for items 10, 11, and 12, and you will notice that we have three resolutions, starting with the initial resolution, which is to inform the public that we do have an intent to borrow. And then you'll notice that when we get to 11 and 12, those two total up to the amount reflected in our number 10. So just to give you a little background on what we will be doing as we work through these resolutions. I will ask Mr. Cruz to join us. This is Mr. Sam Cruz with the Stevens Group, with whom we have had a long and very strong relationship with as advisors to our county. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mrs. Nolan, do you need to give us some introductory information before we begin?
At the last commission meeting, I gave you a list of those projects that we would be talking about tonight. And I think at that meeting, you asked at the very end, can we do this without a tax increase? So if you just bear with me to go through a few schedules, I want to demonstrate that, yes, we can.
So if you're at item number 10, we do have schedules that she's going to report to us.
Okay, 10A is what I would be showing you if we were right in the middle of budget. These numbers do not reflect the airport portion of the note. Revenue will offset that. So I just kind of want to show you with the projects of the county what we would do. Estimating that with our existing debt, $40,060,000 is what we would be scheduled to pay with the note of the bond of 33.2. The estimated debt service on that for next year would be $1,576,000 to bring our total of $41,636,000 for the appropriation. The next colorful one is kind of is my worksheet on estimating revenues for next year. The estimate right now, and if you look at the current property tax, you see 0. I've made that flat. We have not got the information yet for the assessments and certified tax rate for next year. So just kind of, so you know that there's some maybe improvement there. We have reductions in some of the other related property tax revenues, if you remembered at the end of the budget process, we added 5 cents to the general fund and 5 cents to schools. The trustee collection prior year, clerk and master interest and penalty and pickup taxes, those revenue items are split based on the penny. So the ratio changed on us. So that's what we're seeing a reduction into, actually this year into next year. So anyway, at this point, conservative revenue estimate of $38,936,000. So if you go to the second page with the arrows, then that first line, 1415, just kind of puts it in the schedule that we were at right now estimating that our revenues would be below our expenses by almost 2.7 million, with a projected fund balance of ending this year at 32,500,000. I'm demonstrating that we will be within our 65% requirement of appropriations in our fund balance. Now, as you see, you see column 1, column 2, and 3.5 with the 33.2. I've kind of thrown in an accelerated, if you remember what the school board brought in their proposed, and it was an accelerated schedule. I was trying to demonstrate what would it look like if we went to that accelerated schedule. So you can see that this year and next year would be okay, but definitely third year we had a problem. If we had to build on that accelerated schedule that the school board presented. If you would, that's kind of what I would be presenting on next year's budget. The last page, you remember last month we had to do a cash flow statement on debt service for the 3-star program. This is your expanded version of us talking about the cash flow for next year, and this schedule just demonstrates that we do have sufficient cash to pay our debt as it comes due. So I turn it back over to you to go with the initial.
So we are ready for item number 10, which is our initial resolution authorizing 35.8 million general obligation bond issue. Again, this is the resolution that will be published in a newspaper to inform the public of our intent to borrow. Initial resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $35,800,000 of general obligation bonds of Rutherford County, Tennessee. Discussions or questions before we're ready to make a motion, or if you're ready to make a motion, the chair will entertain that.
This is all the stuff we've been talking about for the last year.
Yes.
I mean, we've approved Blackman Edition, Smyrna, and
you've got the list
yeah,
of
but,
what we're talking about.
I mean, just off the top of my head, so it's not new money. It's not like all of a sudden we walked in there and said, we're going to borrow $35 million. We've known this was coming for months and months and months. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve. This is just
I'll second it.
All the projects that we've talked
we've
about.
Already let the contracts on and everything.
Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner P. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
I do have a comment. One of the things that was within these resolutions, we've already approved an initial resolution on the airport authority. This and some of the other ones rescinds that action and
yes, if you'll
puts it back
notice,
on.
after that first big paragraph, you'll see that.
So we're wrapping it all up together. The other thing, what we failed to do the first time is to add in to the resolution, there is a cost to borrow money, so we needed to add that in. And the airport needs to net $2.5 million from us. So you'll see that in going from 2.5 to 2.6.
But that's just passed through. They're covering everything involved with that.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second on the initial resolution authorizing us to borrow this amount. Any questions or comments?
I'd like for Lisa just to kind of, or the mayor one, to kind of go through that list though, our punch list here of what those amounts are and what they're going to, just to reaffirm the public that's watching as well as ourselves here on the committee of what these dollars are being spent for. Yeah.
We've got to the note that we've carried along since 2008, we're taking that out and fixing it with a bond. We've got Smyrna Elementary.
And the savings there on doing that.
The Smyrna Elementary one, and the town of Smyrna voted last week, or this week, last week to their second reading to turn the mixed drink tax over. So that will add into this project, but it enabled us to borrow less, which means, you know, it was an elementary school, so we would have to borrow enough to share with the city of Murfreesboro, so that did, with them doing that, it's generating a savings there. What you approved last month, the Eagleville High School addition and Blackman Middle School annex. The road project, if you remember, we, at the time, thought we had enough, and we did, for the Joby Jackson, but at that same time, the sheriff department had an opportunity for the building, so we pulled $1 million out of that road project so that they could secure that building and improve it. So this is the replacement for the $1 million we took out from Joby Jackson. Then the Justice Center and parking garage, $1 million. We've got $5 million, $1 million really kind of for the garage part, and then $4 million.
For the property for the garage.
Yes, for the garage, thank you. And then, $4 million for the planning. So that's what makes all this up. And if you don't mind, if Mr. Cruz would kind of explain why we do an initial, what we're doing exactly, why we do initial.
The initial resolution. Yeah, basically, it, not only is it a notice to the public to the extent that they wanted to challenge the issue or put it to referendum or something to that effect, there's a 20-day waiting period from the time you publish the notice to the time you sell the bonds. So it's required for, you know, any non-school issue that's sold, and if you do it under 921, even the schools. So that's what this notice publication is. The real resolution authorizing the bonds will be coming next.
Question, Ms. Norland. The Eagleville High School addition, we still, because it's always been done, is that the reason that we share with Murfreesboro?
Well, we have to.
Why?
It's not because we've always done it, is that any time that you borrow for a school that has the same grades that is done with the city schools, that the city schools offer, we have to share.
Okay. Well, when we did the last edition, which was mostly the elementary part, right?
Mm-hmm.
We shared then.
We shared on the same basis that we share whenever we do improvements to Eagleville, which is there's 13 grades. There's 13 grades at Eagleville.
Okay.
K through 6 is what Murfreesboro offers. So
Mhm.
we share on 7/13
Okay.
of the project.
Okay, so this time, it's the high school edition.
Well, on the first one, we shared 7/13.
And
On
next
this one, we'll
one,
share 7/13.
13th. Okay. So that's 14/13.
I don't think so.
Okay, back to the Justice Center and parking garage. Where are we on that, Mayor, as far as the parking garage? And it looks like we're buying it and everything's good, and I haven't heard
We're not
that.
finished with all that yet, but we're still having to work through that review and due diligence. But we're hopeful that we're going to be able to buy that, yes. But until we get that done, I mean, there's $1 million available for that purpose.
Mhm.
If we don't, something were to not work, we won't spend the money.
Which is kind of why we have it all in one line. You know, it's
I noticed that.
to not allocate just to a parking garage.
Gentlemen, we do have a motion and a second. Do we need any more discussion relative to the motion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
No.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yeah.
Mr. Ely?
Yes. Next, item 11, a resolution authorizing 33.2 million general obligation bonds. The caption, a resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $33,200,000 in aggregate principal amount in one or more series of general obligation bonds of Rutherford County, Tennessee, excuse me, for the purpose of financing certain public work projects and sharing proceeds as required by law, making provisions for the issuance, sale, and payment of said bonds, establishing the terms thereof, and the disposition of proceeds therefrom, and providing for the levy of taxes for the payment of principal of, premium if any, and interest on the bonds. Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve. This is the same thing we just approved.
Thank you, Commissioner P.
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Bond. Do we need any more discussion?
Well, I do want to make
Okay.
a comment. The job of this committee is to finance what the commission as a whole approves. All these projects have been approved by the full commission. It's our job to find a way to pay for it, and that's what we're doing here. So in case anybody's out there wondering, why do these guys get to take it on themselves to do that? We don't. All 21 of us do.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
No.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Item 12, a resolution authorizing 2.6 million general obligation bonds for the Airport Authority, approving the issuance of 4.4 million airport revenue bonds of the Airport Authority, approving a loan to the Airport Authority, amending the county's debt management policy, and repealing a prior resolution.
In essence, the 2.5 is now replaced with 2.6.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Jordan, thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
That's not, actually, it is part of this bond.
It's separate. The notice is to let the public know for everything. Then we did one, the regular projects, and then this is the airport project that will be paid by the airport.
Okay. Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
I was thinking it was separate. I was just making sure. So.
I'd like to put a comment at the end, because it still bugs me on sharing with the way we do with Eagleville when high school is more expensive than elementary, but I just want to voice that.
I remember a few years ago when we were building an elementary school in Laverne, we asked the city of Murfreesboro to forego their portion because that's several years ago, maybe before your time, Mr. Mayor, because we were doing it way down there on the county line. It didn't really affect Murfreesboro, but they didn't agree with our thing. And, you know, building a school in Eagleville doesn't necessarily affect the city of Murfreesboro that much either, but I doubt they'd agree with us if we tried that again either.
And we explain to them when we'll be kind of
Selling the bonds?
Selling the bonds.
Well, assuming the full commission passes the resolutions next week, we'll try to get the initial resolution published quickly. The 20 days will elapse probably in the early part of the second week of May. And we'll really be working to try and have a bond sale as quickly as feasible thereafter. So I would think a bond sale in mid-May, closing possibly in late May, is kind of our base case scenario. And, you know, interest rates are, depending on whether you're, having listened to the trustee, whether you're investing or borrowing, they're good still if you're borrowing. They're better as of this afternoon. It was an ugly day in the stock market today. And there is that continual anxiety about the tapering of the Federal Reserve and how that's going to affect bonds. I mean, they're still buying $50 billion a month of bonds, even though they're tapering. So they're certainly concerned as they scale that back what it's going to do to interest rates. But as of right now, rates are still historically extremely attractive, even except for a little dip post-recession. They're probably as good as you've borrowed before. So,
What's a rough figure?
well, I ran
3.2?
Pardon me?
3.2?
I ran the numbers at about a 3.5%, trying to be conservative. So I think one could argue that I would put the range in the 3.25 to 3.5 range for the tax exempt piece. The airport issue is a taxable issue, so it's on a different scale. So,
Why is it a taxable issue? Because two governments own it, right?
I think there's private interests involved with the airport, and that's the difference. I mean, you couldn't, 30 years ago, you could build a county-owned building and lease it to Walmart and borrow tax-free money, and that sort of thing happened under the guise of economic development. So a whole, section of the law was created to prevent governments from using their tax exempt status to benefit private entities.
And if you remember, the intent was to build a hangar, the infrastructure in the hangar, so it was going to be leased to private.
It's economic development, so.
Gentlemen, any more discussion or questions for Mr. Cruz while he's with us? Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
You're more than welcome.
Gentlemen, we're ready for item 13, and it is the approval of State of Tennessee grant contracts for youth services. And you notice that there are two of them. It is the approval of both of these grants, the teen learning and the teen tracks, and this is for next fiscal year.
These are monies that just flow through.
Same as in the past.
Same in the past.
Take them both at one vote.
Yes, that would be
Motion to
good.
approve them both.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones.
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner P. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Eby?
Yes. Mrs. Stinson, you are still smiling, right?
They don't normally keep me up this late. I'll have Mr. Brown join me as well.
Mr. Brown, thank you for joining us. Okay, and we will start with your financial report.
Okay. Beginning with Fund 264. For the month of March, our medical experience per employee per month is $1,135 compared to prior year of $745 for a year-to-date average of $884 compared to prior at $811. When we combine our on-site medical clinic, our per employee per month increases to $1,173 compared to prior year of $779 for a year-to-date average of $919 compared to prior of $846. And of course, we see the increase on the clinic's utilization and cost this month as part of the expenses for the biometrics, as we have seen the last few months as well. So we're up 8.7% overall for this fiscal year. In Fund 266, we're at $1,327,146 compared to prior year of $617,893.
Gentlemen, the chair will entertain a motion on the financial report.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jernigan.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, and you are bringing us several things from the last risk management committee meeting. A request to remove the copay at MedPoint clinics.
In 2008, it was proposed and passed that for those who participate in the HRA plan, which is formerly known as the Option 3 plan, that any time that there is a non-preventative service received at the MedPoint clinic, they pay a $50 copay out-of-pocket cost. If you go in for a wellness check, you don't pay. If you go in because you have an ear infection, you will pay. The reason that we originally charged that is because we contributed towards the HRA. We didn't charge any premium for that particular insurance plan. Now we do. Next year we'll be charging even higher premiums as we reduce the contribution by the county. So the proposal is to remove that $50 cost for non-preventative at the clinics. We know that the clinics have a lower cost for us than the private healthcare visit does, and we don't want to disincentivize people from utilizing our clinics by attaching this $50 fee. Now that they are incurring the premiums, we'd like to remove that $50 payment.
We want to take all these one at a time, I guess.
I think we probably should, yes.
Okay, so if we take the $50 off every time that an HRA person goes in, and what they pay, the employee pays is going up 1%. On an average HRA employee, how's it wash out?
We have, I can't answer the question in that way without doing some type of layout for you, which I can't do at the table.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is that we've collected $24,000 in $50 copays since 2010. But how many of those copays did we not collect because people won't go to the doctor because they either have to pay out of pocket or they have to pay that $50? And at some point, you have to weigh out what are the risks versus the cost. And we certainly don't want to drive people into higher healthcare options. Right now, they say, well, I'll go to the clinic, it's $50, I'll use my HRA, I'm not paying any premium. But once people start paying premium, they become a different type of consumer. And what we don't want to do is to have that consumer that chooses to avoid going for a period of time, and now they're in the emergency room, which ends up costing us more. They're in an urgent care clinic, which ends up costing us more. We want to still drive them to our lowest cost option, and that is our clinics. And we've removed the premise for which we originated that expense anyway, so we need to look at that as we do more cost sharing across the plan.
When we get to the proposal, the increase just to the HRA premium the employee pays for next year's $130,000. So
Way more than 24,000.
Yeah,
Yes, it is. And that's in 1 year compared to the multiple years.
Right, the other's like 3. Okay. That gives me some ideas of what I was asking. Thank you.
You need a motion on
Yes,
that one?
yes, please.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner P.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Any further discussion relative to the motion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Eden?
Yes. The next item is the EAP provider renewal.
Our contract with our current EAP provider, which is Life Services, expires at the end of May. This proposal is for a 6/1/14 effective date. Your sheet may say 7/1, so I want to make that correction. It is for a 6/1 effective date. We took proposals and received 5 proposals. Of those, Life Services, the incumbent, still provided the best financial offering as well as the most broadest services to the county. The recommendation was made to continue with Life Services to the Insurance Committee, and it was passed, and that is our recommendation tonight, that we continue with Life Services.
I believe it was unanimous then.
It was a unanimous, right? And both the HR directors expressed satisfaction with the services based on their involvement in feedback from employees.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandlin, seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Shannon?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Recommendation of future wellness proposal and the associated fees.
I'm going to let Mr. Brown talk about this one if you'd like to begin.
Yeah, essentially, as you probably know, this year we rolled out our first wellness program, or the next phase of that, with the biometric screenings and having the increased premium if you didn't participate in the program. And one of the comments throughout the process is, what's next? And so as we start this renewal process, we want to go ahead and put together a 3-year strategy so we can roll that out and say, here's the goals for 2015, here's the goals for 16 and 17. And so what you have there is kind of that strategy for the next 3 years. One thing that we kind of encountered this year is it was pretty tough administratively to track that over 5,000 employees did their biometric screenings with the risk management department. And so this year we did ask for some support, and we looked around and found that Cigna does have a program that we're going to look through here called the ZenSaver platform that will actually allow us to do some of the administrative work on the back end. They will track a lot of that information for us. But what that program will also do as we get into years 2 and 3 will provide us additional programs that allow us to start doing more with the wellness program. And so what we're recommending this year as part of the program is for 2015, both the employee and the spouse would be required to complete a medical questionnaire. So not the biometric screenings, but just a health risk assessment. And then if they do not participate in that program, there would be the $25 charge. And it's for both the employee, as long as the employee and the spouse are on the medical plan, they would both have to complete the health risk assessment in order to receive that reduced premium. So it's not a $12.50 or it's all or nothing.
And y'all presented that to the insurance committee, and what does it take, 8 to 10 minutes?
It takes 8 to
like
10 minutes to finish that.
Just do it on the computer and you answer a question and go to the next page. It was very basic,
And it also, the ZenSaver platform is the Cigna platform. It also has a smartphone application, which is very user-friendly. A lot of our teachers have smartphones, as well as a lot of our county employees. If they don't, then they can go to a computer and complete it, and it does take between 8 to 10 minutes. And so we are asking for them to complete that in 2015 for employee plus spouse. And one of the caveats is it has to be both. So the employee does it, the spouse doesn't. It's not $12.50, it's $25. It takes both of those two individuals to complete it to avoid the fee.
So the first year is just complete an online survey, basically.
Right.
And it can be done at home, or it can come into your office or an office somewhere in the county and do it, or a library, I guess.
Right. And the time frame for doing that would be September through November of this year, and the fees would begin occurring in January 2015.
How confident are you all that having employees complete this survey will enhance their health and save the county money?
I mean, really, this is a timing. Essentially, everybody had to do the biometric screening this year. The goal of doing the biometric screening was to get the blood information into the Cigna system so they will outreach to employees with their disease management programs. So that information is already loaded into the Cigna platform. What we learned from this year is that we really need this platform in order to take this wellness program into the future. And so, to your point, we gave employees over a year to do the health risk or to do the biometric screening this year. And then we're asking for approval to purchase this platform for 1/1/15. So it's almost that we're having to take, I agree, maybe a mini step back and do this health risk assessment, but it's for the employee and the spouse. So now we're getting spouse data as well. And as you can see, for the next year, 2016, you'll do the health risk assessment, and then we're back on track with both the employee and the spouse, I believe, doing the biometrics.
I was just asking about this health screening survey. I mean, how helpful is it likely to be? And I just asked because I have to take a screening, or I have to answer a questionnaire like that for MTSU. And I quickly suspected that if I didn't answer the questions a certain way, I was going to end up with a health coach.
Right.
And a lot of the questions were things like, how happy are you? Are you frequently depressed? I don't know if those are the questions you all are going to be using, but I guess I didn't I guess I didn't find it to be that helpful. I didn't see how it was going to be that helpful. I found it to be a little bit invasive. Some of the questions I didn't particularly care to answer. I think that's different than a biometric screening. If you get your blood drawn and you find out you've got high cholesterol, that's information you could use. But I was answering questions like, how many days am I depressed? I didn't really want to answer the questions. I didn't really want a health coach. So I guess my question to you is not about the biometric screening,
Right.
but about this survey we're talking about for 2015. How confident are we that it's going to be effective?
Well, what we're learning from this is that we have to take baby steps in the county and for the wellness program. And really what this step is more than anything is to get the employees of the county on the system and getting familiar with this platform. And so we're having to put a financial incentive there mainly to get them into the platform, because by year 3, they're going to be interacting in the program, and that's where we're going to see the results in a lower reduced cost.
But
You're right.
even in this year, there is some benefit. There are questions like, what is your cholesterol? What is your height and weight? What, and you will have some risk factors identified through that. What you have just said is a very familiar statement for anyone that's completed an HRA, and there have been a lot of studies that show that in the first year, a lot of people answer just the way that you just said. Well, I'm going to alter my answer because I don't really want to be that honest this year. And they don't necessarily do it because they don't want a health coach calling. They do it because they have a lot of concerns about their employer maybe finding out that they are dealing with certain things. The next year, people become more honest, and they answer it in an actual way that best mirrors themselves. And at that point, then you start to see more results from the plan because they do get the assistance. For some people, it will be more beneficial than others. I can tell you I've heard stories about the biometrics where people have gone suspecting that they had normal values and came back and found out that they didn't. There are people who actually are out there dealing with depression that don't know where to start. And this may be the first place for them to start. But then again, it may not. They may choose to avoid a question like that. So I think it is an individual experience, but certainly there is a lot of research that shows that year over year, by implementing a process like this, there is added value and there are cost savings associated with it.
And we will say too that Cigna is allowing us to have this platform at no cost too, so there's no cost to the county to implement this program.
What was the vote or recommendation from your committee on this?
The committee approved it, the 3-year strategy.
100%?
I think there was one person that
That
said
voted
no.
no, correct.
Out of 14 or 15, whatever.
That is
number
correct. We had
there.
one no.
Well, I mean, I see this at my workplace too, so I mean, it's something that's going around. But, I'm not so sure if, personally, I do my biometrics, so I know what's going on there. But,
And so you're saying if you don't, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm
So you're saying if we don't do the associated fees, then this ain't gonna be done? And we're just throwing it out there for kicks and giggles, and it ain't gonna happen?
We offer it today.
And it doesn't, so that's why the fee is attached.
Right.
And what was the final on the biometric screening? Only 106 people didn't do the biometric screening this year out of over 5,000. That wouldn't have been the case if we didn't have that.
It was around 800 the year before, was it not? Seemed like, I remember some part of
That was the reason we
participation
did the biometric, is
Yeah.
because the year before, less than 1,000 people even
Yeah.
did. You were one of the ones, but less than 1,000 people did it without this incentive. Then we had almost over 5,000.
Well, not only gonna save the county money, we could save somebody's life.
Right.
Well, I'm going in the other direction. I'm not in favor of this deal here. I mean, I know what we're trying to do, but, it seems like everything that we're starting to do, we're hitting the employee with a fee if you don't do it. And then it's kind of getting into a personal thing too, I think, into a certain situation where we don't need to be treading,
What we're doing here with this option is we're giving the employee an opportunity to remove that cost. Not doing initiatives like this, you're going to hit them with fees that they don't have an option about, because you're going to have to either raise the rates or lower the benefits, and that's going to affect everyone across the board. In this type of model where you say this is a cost savings initiative and you can choose to participate or not participate, if you choose not, then there is a fee for not participating. The employee has the ability to make that decision. When we go in and raise an out-of-pocket limit because our experience has, worsened, then that affects everyone across the board and they don't have as much leverage to do anything about it at that point.
I think what Commissioner Sandlin is saying is he would not want to charge them $25 if they didn't have this test, didn't have this survey completed, if they didn't complete this survey.
Then history shows us that our participation level is so low, we really don't have any reason to put something this formal in place. We have an ability to do an HRA right now. You can log into Cigna and do it. You can go through Take Care at our clinics and do it. They have very, very small percentages of participation. We could leave that in place, but that's not going to drive your claims dollars down.
Right, I understand that if you don't have a financial incentive, then the employees won't do it. And I just want to differentiate again one more time between the biomedical exam and this survey. If you go in and have your blood drawn and you find out you've got high triglycerides, you're gaining important information. But to answer a survey that describes how many hours you spend out in the sunshine to get vitamin D, that kind of stuff may not have a cost associated with the county, but it has an 8-minute cost associated for each employee and then their spouse.
But there's certain risk factors that are out there that make you more prone to increased cost. And that is what a health risk assessment is set to identify.
Right, and that's why I was asking, how confident are we that having employees fill out this survey will enhance health enough to save the county money?
I mean, I think that it's different mindsets. The people that are looking for that support, I mean, you're paying for these programs with Cigna today, I mean, the health coaching and things like that. And so a lot of people don't know it's available. So, I mean, by making them do this health risk assessment and getting that phone call, the person that does want to have that phone call will answer. You didn't want the phone call, but there's a group of people that are looking for help, as you were saying, that would outreach to that. You already have these programs in place, and nobody's using them.
I don't see what the big deal is myself. I mean, I'm self-employed. I got to buy my own health insurance. It costs me right at $1,200 a month for pretty bad insurance. I mean, it's 8 minutes a piece, per year. I've had several phone calls, and all of them were about the health coach. I think there's some bad information out there. Everybody thinks, and that's not till 2017, everybody thinks a health coach is going to be calling every single county employee, but they're not. It's only going to be the people that are identified as a risk. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
Which is going to be a very low number of them. Most people aren't going to ever talk to a health coach, and everybody seems to think they're going to have to talk to a health coach, but that's only a few-minute conversation, a time or two a year, and that person, as I said before, it could save somebody's life if it's somebody that's got high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or something that's not doing something else. But and if we don't make some changes, we're not going to be able to continue to fund the insurance we've got for our employees, long term. And it's not comfortable to make these changes, but we've got to be able to keep the county to some extent solvent where we can go long term. I'd rather not have any changes, give everybody everything they want, but we'll break the county doing that because insurance rates are going to continue to grow as they have historically. Mine have gone from $300 a month to $1,200 a month in the last 10 to 11 years. $1,200 a month used to be a good living, not an insurance premium, and that's just the real world.
I do agree that we have an educational issue and that people are maybe of the mindset that the health coaching process is going to begin when this begins, but it's already present today. When you go to the doctor and you get blood drawn and information passes from your doctor into Cigna, it's already feeding these programs that we are paying for as part of our insurance program. There are outbound phone calls happening today. There's outbound mailings happening today. If you're identified as a diabetic and you haven't had certain testing done, you may receive a letter about, hey, have you had your glaucoma screening? Or if you are not taking your prescription medication consistently the way it's prescribed, you may receive a letter in the mail that says, you're not getting your prescriptions frequently enough, which indicates that you may not be taking the medication as prescribed. These programs are already there and happening today. We're just drawing the focus on the programs through the Wellness Initiative.
Okay. A couple of questions. All right. If you do these, you're not going to have to pay for the metric screening when it comes, right? There's
Right.
gonna be, you can go to MedPoint or whatever, you can go to your own doctor and get reimbursed?
Well,
Or-
the biometric you're talking about on year two?
Yeah.
It's considered a wellness, and so it pays at 100%.
Okay. Another thing's a health coach. Is it like a parole officer? I mean, somebody said once or twice a year, and it's on the phone, you don't have to drive. I'm saying from Laverne to Murfreesboro, where they happen to be?
It's
Okay.
on the phone. It is on the phone, and it may only last a month. It may last 2 months.
Oh, yeah.
They talk to you one-on-one and come up with a plan with you one-on-one.
The other question, post-65 retirees that have the county as a supplemental, pre-65 retirees and the spouses that have the county as their primary.
We had talked about retirees. This is a payroll deduction process, and that's the reason why we have not included it in the retirees, is because of the way the billing occurs and premium collections occur.
What about this part? Is between September and November 2014, you fill out that survey. And what if you're going to be retired by January 1st, 2015? Do you need to?
Well, I
If
guess
you put your papers in, you're all clear or what?
Yeah,
Okay.
as long as you roll into that
I'm
retiree
looking-
category,
There's
January 1st.
people around this county that are in all those categories that I just mentioned. That's why I'm wondering to see where they were. Well, this will, I know, will affect my wife and I, and, well, for a while anyhow. Not very long, or I'll be dead, because she won't be happy still working. But anyhow, it just seems like it's a good idea because it helps overall. And you can put out, I can see it with a little bit extra time. We do enough sitting around, I think most people, that you can spare 10 minutes once a year to fill out a survey. Or go and get your blood taken when you should.
I've had some calls on this, people concerned and say, hey, wait on this. So, you know, I'm leaning toward going ahead and passing this on to the full commission, maybe digging some more into it. But I do have one concern, and, you know, maybe we can talk about this here and maybe we can't. But how does this pertain to our HIPAA laws as far as, and I think that may be one of the concerns that people have about it. You know, if we want to put this off for a later discussion, I'm fine with that, but.
We can have that discussion now.
Okay.
It meets all the HIPAA requirements. We're not receiving their individual results. We don't have any of that information. That is all passed through to Cigna. Just as I said previously, if they go to the doctor and they get their blood drawn, there's certain elements of medical information already passing through to Cigna. And so it is a HIPAA compliant process. So there's not any concerns from the Privacy Act that we have.
Most of the people, almost everybody did the biometric screening, all that information's already fed over. I mean, as you said, this is less invasive than what they've already did. We're just kind of taking a step back. So most of the questions they're going to ask, they already know a lot of these answers because of biometrics.
And doing it on the platform actually makes it a more stronger HIPAA process by ensuring that the county is not involved with the tracking or anything of that nature.
All right. Well, one thing I want to say, and you know, of course I don't have to say this, but I've had some pretty serious health issues myself, and I've used their coaches, and I'll have to say that they've all been very attentive. They've done what I wanted to do, you know, within what realm we could. You know, they're good about following up. If I had questions, and a lot of times you do, you know, you may get into a situation you really don't know what's going on, and these people are a good resource, and if you don't realize that, you need to, you know. And no, I'm just like the other commissioner here. I don't care to talk to anybody about whether I feel depressed one day or not. If somebody, you know, if I lost my dog, yeah, I'll probably be depressed that day. You know, there's a lot of things can make you unhappy or depressed at times, and that's anybody. And we, as people, we don't like to share that, but I'm here to tell you, and I'll share this with people with having health concerns myself, is this is a good resource. And these people are not invasive. I mean, it's a one-on-one, and, you know, I basically have formed a relationship with some of the people that I work with. And, you know, I feel like I talk about fishing with them sometimes, and one in particular, but I wouldn't be afraid of this. myself. I've still got a few more questions, but I did want to bring that out. But I'm glad, and the option's there already.
Right.
Okay, one more question about this $25 fee. It's $25 per month,
Yes.
and that will start in 2017.
It will start in, it's
Or is
already
it the
now.
2015?
We're doing it now.
We're doing it now.
It's in fact this
If
year.
they didn't, for the 100 plus that didn't do the biometric, we're doing it now. The rate's like 31 and a quarter for Board of Ed because, they don't pay premiums twice a year for 2 months. Annualized is the same though. And so the $25, the requirement to not pay that $25 starting January of next year changes, and you have to, within this time frame, fulfill the requirement of the HRA. And then the next year, you have a new requirement. The next year, you have a new requirement. And that's pretty consistent with how wellness programs are.
Yeah, we're doing the $25 now. It'd get very
Right.
confusing if we had it, then took it away, then put it back.
Is it the third year it levels out, and that's what, as it stands now, is the way it'll go on for the future?
You normally add some type of a new piece of the program. So year 4 will look different than these other years.
So they get hit a couple times and they go, wow, I need to do that. And then
Well-
then it can stop.
I think they're already saying that they should do this by the low number that we had that didn't do it. They already understand the importance of it, but perhaps the 100 that didn't
So
do
how
it
many's
this time
paying the
will do it.
$25 a month?
100, a little, just a couple over 100, 106, I think was the number I saw last time.
Wow.
But if you're an employee, you can just make a midpoint visit and say you want your biometric screening, you're covered, right? You go in and do it, so you can do anything else you need while you're there with it.
106 people.
Out of 5,000.
That's a pretty low percentage.
Very
I mean,
low
you guys
percentage.
were very successful. I mean, it took a lot of work to get that low number, but as a program, as an organization, that's great.
It's our responsibility to bring these things for consideration because, as I mentioned earlier, what we don't want to do is not make these type of proposals and do cost sharing another way, which affects an employee in their pocket as well by weakening the benefits. And we want to try to do things to lower our overall costs so we can keep the benefits strong as they are today.
Yeah, we're kind of flip-flopped this a little bit, but here in a second, we're going to talk about the budget for this year, which is a 0 increase. So, I mean, last year we had a pretty hefty increase, and the goal last year is we have to do something so that doesn't happen again. And one of our big initiatives is to put together this wellness program. But as we kind of talk about the next couple points, the good news this year, if everything goes through, is this wellness program is going to be the main focus of annual enrollment. Really not a lot of plan design changes, no carrier changes really. The contributions we're about to talk about, but the overall budget is flat. So maybe that helps if you do that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Schaefer.
So there's 100 paying $50 a month.
There's
Because
100
mostly there's 100 total.
Paying
100 total.
$25.
300 more a year.
Only
I'm
the
just
employee
saying
had to do
spouse, so that's spouse.
We didn't include
No,
spouses
okay.
for this year. It's
So
only
that's
the
just employee.
Right.
At 25 a month. But then it says over here spouse as well.
Right, because next year for 2015.
But it won't be $50 a month for the employee and the spouse. It'll still be the $25. But they just both have to, if the spouse is on the insurance. If the spouse isn't on the insurance.
You don't have to do it.
Right, right. Okay.
We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion relative to the motion?
I may change my mind in budget, but I'm not for it right now. Sorry.
You're in budget.
This is
Thank you.
budget.
Well, I'm talking about the other budget.
I'm gonna
We go
ahead
through
and add
budget
that
again
I
in
like
there,
the
all
idea
21 of us.
biometric exam. I just don't see a tremendous amount of value in this assessment questionnaire.
A lot of lies, don't you think?
Any further discussion?
Anybody that wants any more knowledge on is welcome to my seat on the insurance committee. I throw that out on a regular basis. One of the days somebody will take it.
Yeah, we spent about 3 hours plus last time.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
No.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
No.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
this pair and 998 this pair, maybe two different things.
Mrs. Stinson, change to the vision coverage.
Yes, ma'am. Currently, the vision benefit and the cost associated with that benefit is tied directly to our medical premium. Healthcare reform says that anything included in that everything will go to your out-of-pocket cost. And if we leave vision inside of our medical, then even vision out-of-pocket cost will now roll to what we previously thought of as only our medical out-of-pocket cost. What employers are doing is one of two things. They're either carving it out, which is going to be our recommendation, or they're raising those out-of-pocket annual limits to offset having these additional benefits rolling into that new bucket now. What we've recommended is to carve out vision beginning in 2015. The benefits will stay the same. It's just that now the employee will be required to select that at annual enrollment if they want to be in the vision plan, and it will have a 100% employee paid premium associated with the vision benefit. So for someone like me that doesn't wear glasses, doesn't wear contacts, I really don't have a need for vision insurance, and I will as soon as I don't elect it, I won't pay this portion of the premium starting next year because I won't elect vision benefits, whereas today I'm paying for a benefit that I never use. So the recommendation is to carve it out as you see there with the associated premiums for 2015.
So they'll pay $13.43 a month.
For employee plus family. Otherwise, what we'll need to do is to go back and you either leave it the way it is, knowing that people are going to hit their limits quicker, which is going to cost the plan more down the road, which is going to drive premiums the next year, or we need to raise the limits. The easiest solution is to just carve it out.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Schaefer, seconded by Commissioner Salmon. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Salmon?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Recommendation of dental rates.
We've not taken a dental increase in a couple of years. We did add the option 1 buy-up, which is the increased orthodontia benefit for children 19 and below who are eligible for orthodontia benefit. We're seeing some increase in our claims experience for our dental insurance, resulting in a 9% increase for 2015. That's what you have before you as a recommendation, is that we increase rates by 9% for 2015.
How did the vote go on this one?
It was passed unanimous, as I recall. It's been at least 3 years since we've taken an increase on dental.
The maximum, all the benefits will stay the same.
Benefits are still the same, right?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Commissioner Sandlin, thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan? I'm sorry, Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Salmon?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Recommendation of the 2015 premium proposal.
We're going to torture you for a little bit.
Maybe she
and we
doesn't need glasses.
decided-
Some of us are a little older than
Yeah.
her now. Remember the day.
Blow it up and break it down in
You can't make
quarters.
it big enough. Put them all together to see this. Everybody have one of those. It should have number 2 up in the corner, and then we'll give you one more. Those down there. The one that you have before you, we had voted to blend the rates last year, and that's the one that you have before you. It's to show you what the blending of the rates look like.
step 2 at the
You should
top?
have two. You should have one that has a number 2 at the top, and one that has a number 3 at the top.
We should both do 2. I got 2 too. 3. Anybody need a 2? Look awful similar.
Yeah. So the page that's marked number 2 at the top shows you the blending of the rates. We previously passed blending 365s with the actives. What that results is a slight increase to the rate for the active employees, decrease to the rate for the pre-65s, and it expands the tiers to 4 tiers for the pre-65s. Previously, they had single or family coverage. Now they will have the 4 tiers. The page with the number 3 on it reflects the premiums for 2015 with the 1% reduction in the county contribution, which had been previously passed that we would do a 1% reduction per year. So with the combination of blending the rates and the 1% reduction in county contribution, you can see that the employees will see an increase. The budget, to back up to what Mr. Brown had said previously, the budget, which is our total budget, how much money do we need, is not increasing. So this increase to the individual employee is directly related to the blending of the rates and the reduction in the county contribution. Last year, we requested the $62,337,375 for full budget. We're requesting that same amount for 2015. So there's no rate increase as a result of that. But the other 2 results in a slight increase for employee only coverage and about a 9% increase on the copay and HRA plan for the other tiers for the employee, between 9.2 and 9.5. And then you can see on the HRA plan that the increases look substantial. The dollar amounts aren't, however.
This will take us to 86%.
Yes, sir. With the exception of the individual, which will remain at 90%, and on the HRA, the individual remains at 100%, the employee plus spouse is at 97, employee plus child is at 98, and employee plus family is at 96. So to comparing the 2, you can see that a 1% reduction on the county side equates to almost an 8% increase to the employee themselves. And this is what was passed and forwarded on to you for review.
What percent was I having it set then if this passed?
It's reflected here in the, it would be at 86%. 90% for individual, 86% for all other tiers for the copay and deductible. If you're looking at this column.
On 3?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then the varied amounts for the HRA.
Okay, got you.
It's a lot of numbers. You have any questions or you kind of following it?
Just to repeat what Ms. Denson said a minute ago, this is mainly because of the 86%, dropping to 1%. That's what,
Right.
because, you know, the total number stays the same. Last year, I remember on the commission floor, there were several commissioners talked about going on to 80 all at once. I mean, that would just cut the legs out one of the employees, but we have been on this path for 4 years now, I guess. So we started at 90, we're working our way toward 80. And it gets back to being able to remain solvent and provide insurance long term.
So where is there a difference between page 2 and 3?
Page 2 simply shows the effect of blending the rates between the active Page 2 is just to show you the effects of blending the rates,
Oh, from one year to the next, yes.
the pre-65s and the actives by blending the rates.
See the
And then
yellow column? The
Mhm.
yellow column is
It's the
saying the
same.
active rates are
Right.
now the same as the retirees. So last
Correct.
year we said we were gonna blend the rates so that the actives and the retirees got the same rate. And so what that meant was we had to increase the active rates about 1.5%, and the retirees rate went down. It was about $870-something thousand we shifted to kind of keep those rates now the same. So this is what we voted in before. But you can see the employee impact of that was about 1.6%, so it's pretty minimal. Number 3 shows the bigger increase was moving that 1 point, because you pay so much towards the cost today, going from 86 to 85 or whatever, that's 10 points as a percentage. So
We
wanted
talked
to
about blending last year,
Mhm.
but at that point in time, the employees were already getting hit over the head, and it was gonna make a significant decrease for the retirees, and we didn't feel that was fair to
Right.
beat up one group and reward the other, and this year it was a lot softer of a blow to either side, so we felt it was, if I'm not speaking out
that's
of turn.
correct. That's right. Last year, it would have put about $750,000 more onto the actives, and we didn't want to do that. So we had that 1-year consideration for the 365 that was made.
But what we see is the retiree claims keep going up and down. It's just a small population, so it's really not fair to necessarily have their rates
Right, it's
self-sustaining
not
either, because it's just a small group. So we're really putting the whole group together with one rate so that there's a little more stability, mainly for the retirees.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Jordan, thank you.
I'm gonna second this, and like I said, we are endeavoring to get to our 80%. This is another step getting there.
One thing I do want to mention too is that this includes the 10% increase for stop loss this year as well. So even with that, we didn't see a rise in our overall budget needs.
Did y'all consider any change in the kinds of things that would be covered, like bariatric surgeries?
That had been brought up last year, and I did look at that again. You know, we didn't make that decision last year because it was so volatile, and we saw that once again, it has peaks and valleys, and it's just not consistent enough. We only had 3 cases, so we didn't see the benefit to removing the benefits.
Gentlemen, any further discussion relative to this motion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. A recommendation from the Risk Management Committee of rate structure for post-65 retirees, non-grandfathered medical only.
When we went through the GASB, defining GASB in the various classes, one of those classes we created was a post-65 non-grandfathered non-pharmacy, which is why it's called medical only. We don't currently have anyone who we know of who is retiring. We feel that we may have someone come up this year, so we need to go ahead and establish those rates. In the event that we do have someone falls into that category and retires, then we have the rates passed. So what you have before you is the rates without the pharmacy included, medical only, non-grandfathered post-65 for your recommendation.
I guess they're based on our experiences?
Yes.
People who are in the system, that you take out the pharmacy
That's
component?
right. That's right. And you can see there is a reduction in the rate when you remove the pharmacy out.
Sorry, but I thought we did away with pharmacy for retirees.
And that's what these,
Yeah.
at a certain point, but we've not established what that
What?
premium rate will be, and that's what this
Okay.
does. We haven't had anyone, because there were so many people grandfathered in, based on the years of service, age, and other parameters, that we haven't had anyone retire who would fall into this classification yet. We almost had one this last year, so we know there may be another on the horizon, so we need to go ahead and get rates established.
This is just theoretical. This
Yeah.
isn't a
Yeah,
single
this is-
person. This
it's
just
not a single
could be a
person.
person in the future.
But we won't be able to help them in the absence of these rates when they come into our office and ask how much insurance is gonna be, so.
This is for their supplemental then, is what you're saying, right?
Well,
Well, if they're 60, it's 65, right?
this would be post 65,
Yeah.
right?
So you
But
gotta
would
have
they-
Medicare.
Would they have the option to or have the prescription medication also? Or is that taking
Not
that
through the
option
county,
away?
they wouldn't. That was taken off based on what was passed through the GASB language.
Yeah, we did that a couple of years ago.
For a couple of years.
This is for 1 January 2015, correct?
Correct.
But we grandfathered so many people, it's taken a while to get to that point.
Correct.
I made a couple of motions that somebody else has done.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Bond, seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
I'll abstain tonight because I think my wife might be the first one to hit this. Maybe, you know, so I have to talk to her.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Like I say, I know there's a lot of employees that aren't happy about some of the decisions we make. I don't think any of us take it lightly when we change things that affect their coverage or their premium. But as I've said before, I think we're all just trying to put the county in position to be able to keep providing these benefits long-term. But if we don't, if we just stick our heads in the sand and carry on what we've always done in the past, we will not be able to afford the coverage in a short number of years, so we have to do something. I wish we didn't have to change anybody's rates, but it is what it is.
Or behaviors.
Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, we are ready for item 15, a resolution to request unclaimed balance of accounts remitted to State Treasury under the Unclaimed Property Act. And I think you will remember that we did this last year.
And the year before that.
And the year before.
You need a motion?
Please.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner P.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Again, you're going to recognize this, an approval of relax and ride contract with the Regional Transportation Authority.
And this is a reoccurring event that we do every year. I mean, this amount is the amount of our piece of it. We share all these expenses with the other jurisdictions, Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Laverne, even MTSU is in on part of this. So our current contract's about $34,000, I think. So this is about a $3,000 to $4,000 increase for the 30-something trips a day that are being run between Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Laverne to Davidson County.
That's how much money we pay annually?
Yes, sir.
Pretty good deal for $37,000.
Make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Jernigan, thank you.
Second?
Second by Commissioner Bond. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Gentlemen, we do have an item under other business.
This is a request, and Mr. Cast would be here, but was already planned to, he's teaching a class at the moment, and this information came through pretty quickly, as a matter of fact, today. And in his meeting with Homeland Security, there was a need that was determined. They would love to have some sonar equipment, but the 2013 monies don't allow for that piece of equipment. But the Homeland Security folks in our district said that there was 36,000, a little more than 36,000 available from the 2012 Homeland Security allocation, and that they were willing, if the Rutherford County could secure the equipment, that they would allocate $36,000 to Rutherford County. So this request is, of course, the amendment to have it in place so that when they bid, and this, or they will have to bid this piece of equipment, that it will be in place to where they can issue the purchase order and get the equipment back. We have to have it in hand, and paid for by May 31st. So that is why this is kind of accelerated. If you go to the second page in this document, this is the information that came today from Homeland Security, from the Davidson County, or for our district. There's 36,966 left, and they were reallocated for 36,000 to Rutherford County for this purpose. And then there's a third page over. This is the picture of the equipment.
Do they have to put it out for bids, or something
It will
already on
have to
state
go
bids?
out. It's
not on state bid, we'll have to bid this.
So they do have time, you think, to get
Yeah,
this?
we do have time, we have to expedite this, as a reason we're bringing this tonight, so we can move forward with our bid process.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Jordan, thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner P.
So this is for a C scanner for what, Percy Priest Lake?
Well, we have a device that's like this, that's old and antiquated, and parts are not available anymore, so this is going to replace the equipment.
Okay,
we
so
have on our-
we
on
do
our
have a
rescue
use
boat.
for it.
Yes, we do have it. We have it on our
Searching
boat
for
already.
vehicles.
And I think what they said, that when
Some-
we
Oh,
had a
some-
flood,
okay.
that we had to go use
Okay,
Davidson County's.
all right. I just don't want to be spending to be spending.
No.
I'm sorry.
It's going to replace the very much needed equipment.
We'll have an ocean.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Shannon?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Is there anything else that needs to come before our committee?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Schaefer,
It's
what do you
the-
have?
It's the second Saturday coming up of the month, in between September and May. And this is only April. From 6 to 10 o'clock, the Laverne Rescue Squad has a tremendous ham breakfast on Gamble Lane. It's right off the old Nashville Highway. Thank you.
Anything else that needs to come before our committee?
Last one.
We are adjourned. Thank you, Jen.